Hey, Happy New Year everyone, and welcome to the first video of 2019, which I sure as hell didn't expect to be this, but here we are. Before we begin, I just wanted to thank everyone for a phenomenal 2018, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the future has in store for this wonderful and vibrant community. Anyway, enough sappy shit, onto the news. Today's video concerns none other than Activision Blizzard. Out of the blue on New Year's Eve, the company filed the following SEC form detailing that Activision would be terminating its contract with Spencer Neumann, who is, or rather was, the chief financial officer for the notorious game publisher. The important bit resides in the second page, which features a paragraph that reads as follows. On December 31st, 2018, Activision Blizzard, the company, notified Spencer Neumann, the company's current chief financial officer, that the company intends to terminate Mr. Neumann's employment for a cause unrelated to the company's financial reporting or disclosure controls and procedures. Mr. Neumann has been placed on a paid leave of absence from the company pending an opportunity for him to demonstrate why cause does not exist to terminate his employment or why termination of his employment is not otherwise justified. In light of the above, effective January 1st, 2019, Mr. Dennis Durkin, our chief corporate officer, will assume the duties of the principal financial officer, chief financial officer of the company. In the event Mr. Neumann ultimately ceases to be the chief financial officer, then Mr. Durkin will become the chief financial officer. Mr. Durkin, 48, joined the company in March 2012 as blah 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 blah. You get the idea. So first things first, if you've been keeping up with Activision Blizzard news, then you know that 2018 has been a rough year for the company. While Black Ops 4 performed reasonably well, investors still weren't pleased by the fact that sales figures weren't significantly higher than previous entries' performance. Then there was the whole fiasco with Blizzard's announcement of Diablo Immortal during BlizzCon 2018, which caused all kinds of backlash against the game studio, whose internal culture has been reported to be changing as Activision's influence on the traditionally independent studio continues to seep in and grow. Perhaps most devastating of all was the financial report that followed soon after, during which Activision reported signs of stagnation where monthly active users and sales figures across their franchises was concerned. Destiny 2 in particular has been performing very poorly for the company, with the Forsaken DLC having failed to bolster the player base after a good chunk of it was lost to the numerous controversies the title faced throughout its first few months. It's this stagnation that has led Activision Blizzard to start an initiative to cut costs and output more titles at a faster pace across all their subsidiaries, including Blizzard, which is starting to feel the brunt of that initiative as of late. The result of all this is that Activision Blizzard stocks have thoroughly plummeted in the past couple of months. While much of that can be attributed to the fact that the stock market as a whole is in freefall, there is no denying that even during this fickle climate, Activision stocks are falling at a faster rate than normal. Their lackluster performance undoubtedly bolstered their stock's decline and made it that much more difficult for the company to weather the storm. Now, the role of the chief financial officer, as the title suggests, is to be in charge of managing a company's finances and weighing financial risks, among many other things. It is their responsibility to dictate the best path of profitability months and years down the line, reporting directly to the CEO. So when a company has a rough financial year, one of the people who are reflected most poorly from such an occurrence is the CFO, which is why in light of recent developments and in light of a rough 2018, many are wondering whether Neumann was put on leave by Activision because he's being held responsible for the company's less than stellar performance last year. According to Activision, this isn't the case at all, with part of their statement reading, "The company intends to terminate Mr. Neumann's employment for cause unrelated to the company's financial reporting or disclosure controls and procedures." Hard to say for sure if that's really the case, as it's one hell of a coincidence that such an occurrence would happen during a strenuous time for the company, but even if Activision is telling the truth, though truth isn't necessarily a word I associate with a company like Activision, they have yet to provide a tangible reason for this sudden termination. What I can tell you is that it certainly has nothing to do with Neumann being unable to work, as the current rumor suggests that he was poached by Netflix and will be starting there in early 2019. This information was relayed by a source who spoke to news outlet Reuters after word of Neumann's termination began to spread, and this is something that Netflix is apparently set to announce in the coming days. Welp, I guess microtransactions are coming to interactive Netflix shows like Black Mirror Bandersnatch. match. Got a bad ending? Wait a few hours or spend some premium currency to try again. Is watching the show taking up too much of your time? Simply pay to unlock the ending so you don't have to do something as silly as watch the show. It's all about viewer's choice. Joking aside, hard to say if Netflix poached Newman after Activision had made the decision to terminate his contract behind the scenes, or whether Newman had been poached sometime back and the termination was a result of that. Either way, the main point to highlight is that Newman is out, to which I say good riddance. As the former CFO of Activision, it goes without saying that the man was in large part responsible for the numerous forms of shady monetization found in Activision games throughout the years, with the most recent example being Black Ops 4, which has some of the worst microtransactions seen in 2018. We all know that the inclusion of recurrent monetization are far from being a creative decision. It's always a corporate one, and people like Newman are as corporate as they come. Being first and foremost a businessman, I highly doubt he understands the first thing about gaming, and I doubt he even cares about how his financial decisions affected the quality of games, as the primary directive is making money by any means necessary. But hey, not like he has any reason to care given the guy was making close to $10 million every fiscal year, because obviously games cost too much to make for these major AAA game publishers. Now, as much as I'd like to say that things will change moving forward, that things will get better, this is just a simple case of Activision replacing one corporate scumbag over another. Whoever this Dennis Durkin is who will be replacing Newman as chief financial officer, it's unlikely that his methods will be that much more different. So long as Robert Kotick remains CEO of Activision, so long as it's a businessman who happens to be in the business of games rather than a gamer who happens to be a businessman at the top of the pyramid, the corporate structure and the focus on revenue will remain the same. Kotick, I should add, made close to $30 million in 2017 because clearly AAA games cost too much to make, because clearly the boundaries of monetization have to be pushed to the absolute limit for these multi-billion-dollar companies to stay afloat. So yeah, ultimately it's Kotick who defines Activision's direction, it's Kotick who the CFO reports to, and Kotick's current directive is clear. Make more money-milking machines disguised as games, even if it means stripping away the craft's creativity and innovation one piece at a time. But the good news is that 2018 was a great year in terms of showcasing the importance of consumer goodwill. Companies are starting to see that people are now paying attention and keeping companies like EA and Activision in check under a microscope. We have seen just how much noise gamers can make and how badly the ensuing negative PR can affect a game's commercial prospects, with titles like Destiny 2, Battlefield 5, and Fallout 76 among many others, all falling well below expectations as a result of game companies forgetting about the importance of goodwill and about the importance of delivering a good product. So now more than ever, we are keeping these companies on their toes, reminding them that without consumers on their side, their ventures are bound to fail. This may not necessarily be enough to mitigate the bullshit that surely awaits us in 2019 from infamous companies like Activision, EA, Take-Two, Ubisoft, and more, but when the bullshit starts to reek, we'll certainly be there to call them out. On a brighter note, I think Sony might have a really great year in store for us with upcoming titles like Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, Death Stranding, and more. I think we'll see much more of highly anticipated titles like Cyberpunk 2077. January is jam-packed with titles like Resident Evil 2 and Kingdom Hearts 3, and there's just a lot of great stuff to look forward to as well, so it's not all doom and gloom. Anyway, that's it for this news update and discussion video. Thank you for tuning in. To be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.